I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for January 10th, 2022. If you would please rise as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Ms. Hoppy.
Present.
Ms. Hutchinson.
Present.
Mr. Ohm.
Here.
Ms. Holteen.
Present.
Mr. Stites.
Here.
Dr. Weaver.
Here.
Ms. Dozman.
Here.
Ms. Nosler Beck. Ms. Val absent.
Ms. Mosselbeck is absent tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, 7 of the 8 members of council are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Councilors, we have no minutes in our package to approve. I will move to approval of the agenda and recognize Ms. Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item 1A from the consent agenda to be discussed separately.
Okay, thank you. With that exception, we will let the agenda stand as is. Okay, we're good there. We have several proclamations this evening, and I'm going to go to the podium. Our first proclamation is a proclamation in support of National Radon Action Month, January 2020. Whereas radon is an invisible, odorless, radioactive gas that threatens the health of our community, and whereas radon is a leading environmental cause of cancer mortality in the United States and the 8th leading cause of cancer mortality overall. And whereas the Colorado Rocky Mountain region has been ranked Zone 1 by the United States Environmental Protection Agency as an area with the highest potential radon possible. And whereas any home in Wheat Ridge, Colorado may have an elevated levels of radon, even if homes in the same neighborhood do not. And whereas it is important to support recommended radon practices and policies to reduce radon exposure and protect our community's health and welfare. And whereas testing for radon is simple and inexpensive, and when identified, radon exposure can be addressed effectively. And whereas, in adopting the 2018 International Codes on January 13th, 2020, City Council adopted Appendix F of the International Residential Code, requiring a minimum of passive radon mitigation in new residential construction to mitigate the transfer of radon gases from the soil into the home. And whereas Jefferson County Public Health, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the American Lung Association are supporting efforts to encourage Americans to test their homes for radon, reduce elevated levels of radon, and build new homes with radon-resistant features. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wheat Ridge Mayor and the City Council formally designate January 1 through 31, 2022 as National Radon Action Month. Dated this 10th day of January, Bud Starker, Mayor. And I would like to bring Ken Johnstone onto our screen, and he has an introduction for us, I understand. Mr. Johnstone, carry on.
Thank you, Mayor Starker. Yes, Ken Johnstone, Director of Community Development. Pleased to have Cornelia Orzescu, our new chief building official, as of late December. She's an employee of Charles Abbott Associates, our contract building inspection and plan review firm, and has a strong background in the international codes in Colorado, but new to our organization and relatively new to Charles Abbott. So we're pleased to have her aboard. She actually, congratulations, Cornelia, recently elected as president of the Colorado chapter of the International Code Council. So really proud to have her as part of our organization, and she's here to accept the proclamation. Cornelia, do you have any?
Thank you for the introductions.
Any words for us?
Yes, I would like to say that I'm really proud to be part of a city who shows how important it is to safeguard public welfare and health. And I will accept the proclamation.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Orzescu. It's a pleasure to have you on board with our staff, and we look forward to a long and fruitful working relationship with you. So thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, December 14th, the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association held its annual awards ceremony. I am pleased to announce that 2 of the 2021 CPRA award recipients represent the city of Wheat Ridge. I'd like to introduce Parks and Recreation Director Karen O'Donnell to tell you a little more about the individuals we'd like to honor this evening. Director O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Each year, the president of the CPRA Board of Directors has the opportunity to select one or more individuals or groups to honor with the President's Award. In 2021, the CPRA president recognized our very own Beth June for her ongoing leadership associated with the annual CPRA Awards Banquet. Beth serves as a recreation coordinator for youth and therapeutic programs for the city of Wheat Ridge, and she's co-hosted the awards banquet for 3 consecutive years, sharing her energy, positivity, and creativity. Unfortunately, Beth is not able to be recognized via Zoom this evening. She is enjoying a well-deserved vacation. So secondly, I'd like to announce the CPRA Community Champion Award recognizes an individual or organization within any Colorado community who is a true Parks and Recreation champion. I'm thrilled to announce that the 2021 recipient was Local Works for their contributions both individually and through partnerships with our department to provide enjoyable and memorable experiences within the Wheat Ridge community. Their efforts truly complement our work, providing wonderful opportunities for our residents to engage, socialize, and give back to the community that they love. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Kate Cook and Jenny Snow, who are with us this evening. So I don't know if either of you want to say anything or hold up your beautiful award, but thank you.
See-through though, so it's gonna be hard to see because it's a really pretty glass thing. Jenny, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to say thank you, and it's so wonderful to be a part of this. I think the one thing I'd like to just throw out there really quickly is we all know, I think, that we have some amazing local businesses here in Wheat Ridge. And in this particular instance, when it comes to the community fridge, we wouldn't have a community fridge if it weren't for Wheat Ridge Poultry and Meats. And so I just wanted to give them a shout out and recognize what an awesome partner they are for us here in Wheat Ridge.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations. And on behalf of the Wheat Ridge City Council, I'd like to congratulate Local Works and Beth June for their contributions to the city of Wheat Ridge, as well as Parks and Recreation's initiatives statewide. So congratulations and thank you. We have one more proclamation that wasn't listed in our agenda program, but it is a proclamation in support of National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I would like to ask Officer Molly Stark to join me at the podium. This is a proclamation in support of National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, recognizing Saturday, January 9th, 2022, as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Whereas, in 2015, Law Enforcement Appreciation Day was founded to highlight the support and appreciation of the general public for law enforcement. And whereas, by founding the National Day of Recognition, the founders hope to draw attention to the dedication of law enforcement officers who serve the public and make a difference while doing their job they love. And whereas National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day helps generate awareness of the dangers law enforcement officers face every day on the job to protect our communities and the sacrifices made by their families. And whereas, tragically last year, 2 officers lost their lives in the line of duty on 2 separate occasions, including Arvada Police Officer Gordon Beasley on March 22nd and Boulder Police Officer Eric Talley on June 21st. Both died while protecting our communities from active shooters. And whereas on December 28th, 2021, Lakewood Police Agent Ashley Ferris saved countless lives by shooting the suspect during a mass casualty event that left her critically injured. And whereas, not only do professionals in law enforcement serve and protect by putting themselves in danger every day, but they safeguard life and property, provide protection against violence and disorder, and shield the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression and intimidation. Now, therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, call upon all those living and working in Wheat Ridge, upon our business community, and those in service, civil, and educational organizations to join us in recognizing Law Enforcement Appreciation Day 2022, to honor the service of the women and men of the Wheat Ridge Police Department and all those across the country who serve their communities in law enforcement. Dated this 10th day of January, 2022, Bud Starker, Mayor. And I would like to present this to you and ask you if you would have a few words to say.
I'm happy to accept this proclamation on behalf of the police department. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and all of the community for your continued support. We really look forward to continuing our partnership in making Wheat Ridge the best place to live, work, and play. So thank you again.
Okay, we are now at our public's right to speak. The members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under the public's right to speak. I have a sign-up sheet, but if you haven't signed up, you may still speak. When I call your name, if you would please come to the podium and give us your first name and your last name. If you would please spell your last name for the record and give us your address. We will have that all for the public record. And we have a couple of public hearings this evening, and anything else on the agenda we will handle with the public comment at that time when the agenda item comes up. So this is for items not on the agenda. And I have a couple of people signed up to speak. Our first speaker is Danny Turlip, and it looks like April Nowak is on deck. And if you'd feel comfortable to take your mask off, you may take your mask off while you're at the podium. If you'd like to take your mask off while you're speaking, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. My name is Danny Turlip, T-E-R-L-I-P. My address is 4704 Estes Street. I believe that's all the information. Yeah.
Please continue. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I'm here to raise awareness about waste management in Wheat Ridge. I believe it's an issue that has long been kicked around within the city, and it's time that we did something about it. Particularly the quality of services that are provided to residents is something that I would like to highlight and like for the city council to take a look at. I think we all have seen trash bins out that don't have lids on them, or trash blowing around, perhaps not proper animal protection. I think that's something that the council should really look at, and the citizens of Wheat Ridge deserve a little bit more investigation into this and see what we can do to improve waste management on a residential level around the city of Wheat Ridge. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is April Nowak.
Thank you. April Nowak, Nowak, 2955 Ingalls Street. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Thanks for your time. I'm also here to talk about waste management and would like the city to take action on how waste is managed in the city. The current way of doing things with each household contracting for trash and maybe recycling is not good for the city, our water, our public health and safety, and it's expensive. And it looks like we just don't care about the city. There's trash cans on the street every single day. People overfill their trash bins, and as Danny said, you know, when there's windy days, the trash is in the street. Animals could get into that. Trash being collected every weekday. There's more opportunity for bins to be out on the street, on the sidewalk, which is a nuisance for pedestrians, for people using the street. And again, it's just a nuisance for the community. Activities like the Local Works dumpster days and stream cleanups are really great, but they don't address the problems we have with waste management. There are too many trucks. The cost of waste services is more expensive than our neighboring cities, and we don't have enough services. We need to have recycling provided by every hauler, and organics and yard waste collection to be an option for people. We need to help residents reduce what waste they do create and what's going to landfills, and provide resources for recycling and organics and that education. We need options for households, again, that produce less waste, and for those people to get a lower rate for their trash services if they're producing less waste. Rather than the 96-gallon toter, someone could get a 64-gallon toter. Those are details that are in the weeds. I'm part of one of the new sustainable neighborhoods of Panorama Park. We surveyed residents in this neighborhood, and waste management was one of the top issues of concern. People wanted more recycling resources. They wanted to address hard-to-recycle items and understanding how to do that. People wanted composting, yard waste pickup, and a lot of people were interested in having a neighborhood trash hauler, so having that as a preference. The two established sustainable neighborhoods of Paramount Park and Applewood Villages currently have a preferred waste hauler. They've identified this as important to their neighborhood. Those communities have identified the outcomes for this hauler as reducing, or having a preferred hauler as reducing carbon emissions, diverting waste from landfills, reducing fees, truck traffic and noise, wear and tear on our city streets, reducing that sidewalk clutter, improving customer service, and reducing hazards for children and pedestrians in the street. Our current conditions are expensive, limited in services, potentially harmful to the environment, unsafe for those sharing the streets, and it just looks like we don't have pride in our city with trash cans every single day. So please take action on addressing how waste is managed. Thanks.
Thank you. Those are all the individuals I have signed up to speak on Public's Right to Speak. If there's anyone that hasn't signed up, you may still speak now, and I will ask if there's anyone online who has raised their hand. If you're online, you may raise your hand and ask to speak, and we'll bring you into the meeting. But I don't see anyone online. I don't see anyone here. So we will close our Public's Right to Speak, and we will move to agenda item number 1. This is our consent agenda item number 1. We have removed item number A from consideration or for a separate discussion. So I will ask Ms. Hoppy to please introduce the consent agenda items 1B through 1F.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consent agenda item 1B, motion to approve quarterly payment to the Jefferson County Communications Authority for E91 call taking and police radio dispatch services not to exceed $645,743 for the year of 2022. 1C, motion to approve payment to Colorado Intergovernmental Risk Sharing Agency, CIRSA, for the year of 2022 property casualty premium in the amount of $345,569.17. 1D, motion to approve payment to Pinnacle Assurance for the year of 2022 workers' compensation premium in the amount of $282,202. Item 1E, motion to approve Wanda Sang and Sunny Garcia to the Election Commission.
Thank you very much.
Item 1F, sorry.
1F. Okay, thank you.
No, I have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Item 1F, motion to appoint Kathy Plummer and Lindsay Burney to the Cultural Commission to fill vacancies, term ending March 2nd of the year of 2023.
Now, thank you, my apologies. If we may have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1B through 1F.
I move to approve consent agenda items 1B through 1F.
Second.
There is a motion and a second by Mr. Stites. Let's see, we are voting with arms raised, so all those in favor of the motion, please raise your arm and let the clerk stand up and count the votes.
Mr. Mayor, the motion was passed unanimously, including Ms. Hutchinson on the screen.
Okay, thank you so much. We had pulled agenda item 1A off of the consent agenda for consideration. Councilor Hulteen, I will go to you for this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been requested by Council Member Dozman for us to address this separately. So I'll go ahead and read it in and then open it up for discussion. I'd like to introduce, I want to make sure I have the right thing here. I want to introduce resolution number 01-2022, a resolution designating the municipal building main entrance display cabinet as the official public notice posting location, and the Jeffco Transcript as the official newspaper of general circulation for the city publications in 2022. At issue, the state statutes require that each municipality annually establish the location for posting public notices, as well as the newspaper in which the notices will be published. Local government entities are also allowed to publish notices online for public meetings. These include meetings at which the adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action occurs, or at which a majority or quorum of body is in attendance.
Thank you. Ms. Dozman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to address this issue separately as a large portion of our population in Wheat Ridge has indicated that they get their news primarily from the Neighborhood Gazette, which circulates in Wheat Ridge and Edgewater. And I just wanted to ask staff as to why we could not designate the Neighborhood Gazette as our official newspaper.
Mr. Goff, do you want to take that, or?
I can start. Yeah, I don't have the statute in front of me. I don't know if, I understand. I think you're right that more people probably get the Gazette than the Jeffco Transcript at this point. I don't know if the Gazette qualifies according to state statute as a legitimate newspaper. We'd have to look into that, but.
Thanks. The statute has sort of specific requirements to satisfy the requirements under for the publication that's quoted the official newspaper. I don't have that statute in my head or with me, but it's easy for me to find and check. I've had to answer that question in other jurisdictions over the years, and I know there's a little bit of kind of mechanical detail that has to, characteristics of that newspaper to qualify. I'm just sorry that I don't have that answer right at the top of my head. I'm happy to look. It's easy to find.
Is there a cost that we incur to publish with the Jeffco Transcript?
There is. Yeah, there's a cost. I think if I remember, annual publication budget's not much more than $15,000, $20,000. somewhere around there. It's less than 30,000, I think, is our annual publication cost.
Okay, because I think you and I had talked about this at one point, just because of the issue of like circulation, that the Gazette only publishes once a month versus the Jeffco transcript. My only other concern is that, I get the Gazette on my porch versus the transcript having to be subscription-based. And so it's not as widely circulated. So I don't know if there could be an option to publish notices in the Gazette as well, or what that might look like, because I know that they recently went digital and update pretty regularly. So if there's an option, I mean, I think 72% of our constituents that answered our survey said that they get their news primarily from the Gazette if it's in a paper base, so.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Councilmember Dozeman. I've been concerned about the transcript and its subscription rate, but yeah, we'd have to look into that, and the Gazette being monthly would cause an issue, timeliness of getting things published. We do publish in the Denver Post if needed, if we can't meet a transcript deadline, but it's twice expensive, if not more, in the Denver Post. I believe we have the option to do everything online too. We don't even have to do in the newspaper. We brought that up, I think, with previous city councils. They weren't willing to go there at the time, but maybe things have changed enough that people are willing to go online as an option. But we do have an option to go online, and we don't have to publish in a newspaper.
Thank you. I had Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the transcript versus the Gazette, the transcript is published weekly, is that the case? Okay. And so then if we do, we can do online in addition to posting out front and the newspaper, right? And so we could also do maybe, is there any, like, timing wise, would there be any way to do like a monthly listing in the Gazette rather than a weekly like we do in the transcript?
Well, you certainly could, but it's going to depend upon the specific needs of that notice. We've got all sorts of notice requirements, 10 days, 15 days, a week, and then there's the notices of second reading, public hearing ordinances. There's a whole raft of them, and without knowing, I think it would be dangerous to make a choice tonight without knowing the impact on all those. Clearly, you've got some choices, though. Under the statute, one door is, it's all now on the website, and we're done, because that's timely. You could do the website plus the transcript for notices with a deadline of, well, I'm making this up, deadline of less than, a deadline that matches with the 1 week publication. You could do website plus transcript for those notices plus Gazette for the notices that would be still be timely in putting them in the Gazette. I think if council wants to really see what their choices are in this range, I mean, those are the 3 doors I can think of, we'd want to kind of lay those against the categories of notice that the city puts out, and I indicated there's a number of them. Armed with those kind of 2 data sets, you could probably make a choice about how you wanted to structure notices, publication notices going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you. My microphone light doesn't work, so if I start talking and you can't hear me, please let me know. I have asked in the past for us to consider online. I think it's actually reaches the most people in our city most consistently, and we could use our communication tools that we have to proactively communicate with people. So I would like to consider adding online, and maybe, are we required to post in a newspaper?
No, we're not. The legislature has, other than requirements that emanate from the charter or the code, or your home rule, and if you say in the charter or code, you've got to do that. In terms of the statutory requirements, no, and increasingly, the legislature just, 2 years ago now, or maybe a year, passed a statute that said we highly encourage local governments to migrate to online noticing for their public meetings and other public notices. You're not required to do it yet. And again, if I'd known the question, I would have checked for tonight. But I believe that we're moving toward a point at which the legislature will make that mandatory. Now, again, your home rule, so you can vary from that unless the courts say it's a matter of statewide concern. I don't think they will. So the answer is no, you're not required. You're highly encouraged by the legislature. I think that's where the legislature's heading soon.
Well, maybe something, I think what's important is that we have designated sources that are consistent and not variable depending on our, variation of notice requirements, depending on the case. So I'd like to suggest that we use the on-site notification that's listed here and to do the website notification. And then not as part of this, but could the city every month take out an ad in the Gazette telling people how they can find the notifications, and for us to just be doing a general post, actually take out an ad in the Gazette that lets our citizens know that postings can be found online and on the county. And excuse me, somebody's clicking something over there. I'm sorry, it's super catchy in my ear. Anyway, is that something that we could consider doing? Is actually, it might end up saving us a little money, and we could consistently have an ad in the Gazette every month, letting people know that our notices are found online and on the city property.
Yes, of course, that'd be easy.
I'd like to suggest that as a cost-effective and communication-effective way for posting our notices.
Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do know that there are people in the city who do not receive the Gazette, and transcript is by subscription. There are still people who take the newspaper, want to read the word as it's written, and not everybody has a computer. You're generalizing that everybody wants to see everything on the web, and I think that's an overgeneralization. There are still people who want to read things. There's also something about having journalists, and there's also another thing that conflict of interest. We have the owner of the Gazette who lives in Wheat Ridge. So not everybody in Wheat Ridge gets a Gazette. They do not have the same information that the transcripts puts out. So I think it's okay to have two newspapers and also have the legal things that have always been in the transcript. Why change that? So I'm very interested in people who have journalist experience, and I'm okay to pay for that. If you don't want to pay for it, that's okay. But to state that most people get the Gazette, I don't know where you all live, but that is not a true thing. So, I take the newspaper. I take the Post, I take the transcript, I get the Gazette sometimes, whatever. But I read, and people still read. They want the paper type of thing. And I think it's very important to see notices that are in the paper. It's different than reading it in the paper than just seeing it on, website or something like that. So just to state, let's change this to the Gazette. We need more information, conversation about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My suggestion would be, instead of trying to craft a motion now at the table, that we make a motion to postpone this to our next business meeting, giving staff an opportunity to put together a proposal now that they can consider all of the discussion that we've had around it.
Mr. Goff?
And if I could maybe add to that, I think that would probably be prudent, but I would suggest passing the resolution as is tonight, because state statute does require that we do that in January. And then we can amend it once council decides what direction to go.
Okay. May I have a motion on item 1A?
Yes, sorry. I move to approve resolution number 2022, a resolution designating the municipal building main entrance display cabinet as the official public notice posting location and the Jeffco transcript as the official newspaper of general circulation for the city publications in 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Hoppy. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, that will conclude our consent agenda. We will go to agenda item number 2. Ms. Dozman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 24, 2021, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 12100 West 44th Avenue from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial, case number WZ-21-10.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial for property located at 12100 West 44th Avenue. The zone change is compatible with the area and will allow a wider range of potential land uses in the future, including residential workforce housing.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is quasi-judicial. If you, I'm going to open the public hearing. If you intend to speak on this, this item, by the fact that you speak on this, you agree to tell the truth as you understand it. So with that, I will go to Mr. Goff for a staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our senior planner, Stephanie Stevens, is here this evening.
Ms. Stevens.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Stephanie Stevens, and I'm a planner in the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ-2110, which is a request for a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial at 12100 West 44th Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the City Council has jurisdiction to hear this case. The property is located on the southeast corner of Van Gordon Street and West 44th Avenue. West 44th Avenue is one of Wheat Ridge's main east to west arterials, and the 44th Avenue sub-area plan process is now underway. The I-70 interstate is nearby to the north, and the property currently has one access point into the site off of West 44th Avenue and 2 access points off of Van Gordon Street to the west. It consists of 4 lots totaling about 2.8 acres in size, and it contains a Howard Johnson Hotel that was built in 1985 and is currently operating. There's a restaurant component located on the first floor of the hotel that is currently vacant. The properties along this portion of West 44th Avenue primarily contain commercial uses, including the truck stop across the street to the north. Tabor Lake borders the site to the south. The property is currently zoned C1, or Commercial 1, and is primarily surrounded by commercial zoning and uses, with residential and agricultural zoning and uses just south and southwest. Hotels are considered a special use in the C1 zone district. This hotel specifically is considered legally non-conforming because a special use permit was not required at the time that it was developed. Residential uses are not permitted in the C1 zone district. Therefore, a zone change is required in order to allow a conversion of the hotel to a residential use. The project aims to generate workforce housing to serve the Wheat Ridge area with potential for small-scale retail or commercial along West 44th Avenue in the future. This is a view of the subject property looking south from West 44th Avenue with the majority of the parking lot out front. And here's a closer view of the existing building. The applicant would like to reuse the existing building and convert it to residential workforce housing. The purpose of the zone change is to result in a zoning that could support the goals set forth in the city's comprehensive plan and accommodate uses that are more in line with surrounding area and market conditions. 44th Avenue is known to have a disparate mix of uses and inconsistency inconsistency in private property investment along the corridor. The comprehensive plan acknowledges this with goals and strategies that promote neighborhood revitalization through creative approaches, such as reusing existing structures to create new housing types as seen with the subject proposal. By way of the 44th Avenue sub-area planning process, the city will also be reassessing land uses to help promote revitalization and attract investment in the corridor while maintaining the character of the area. Based on the existing character and land use patterns along West 44th Avenue, the MUC zone district is appropriate and complementary to surrounding uses, and the zoning itself supports reinvestment. The table on your screen compares the development standards of C1 and MUC zone districts. The MUC zone district and C1 zone district have similar development standards, with permitted uses and height being the primary differences. The C1 zone district allows a wide range of commercial land uses, including office, general business, and retail and service establishments. By contrast, MUC zoning allows for residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two. This property is within the 44th and Ward urban renewal area, which is exempted from the city's charter's height and density limits. This means it may exceed 21 units per acre, and the MUC zone district establishes the maximum height. The design standards in MUC are stricter than for other zones, including setbacks, landscape buffers, and architecture. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on September 14th, 2021 in a virtual Zoom meeting setting. 7 people attended the meeting, and notes from the meeting are included in the staff report. No major issues were expressed regarding the proposed zoning or use. Since Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to agencies including fire, water, and sanitation, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius, and the project was posted on Wheat Ridge Speaks. No comments have been received. We used several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which include consistency with the comprehensive plan. The property is designated as a neighborhood commercial corridor and neighborhood buffer in the comprehensive plan. The property serves as a transition between I-70 and commercial properties along 44th to residential neighborhoods to the south. Stated goals in the comprehensive plan that support this request are to encourage neighborhood revitalization, diversify housing options, promote reinvestment in property, and to promote a mix of neighborhood supporting uses, including residential use and small-scale retail use. The zone change is also supported by the goals and objectives of the 44th and Ward Urban Renewal Plan, which identifies a need for redevelopment, which would promote greater and reasonable economic utilization of the land. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. The zone change is compatible and will likely have positive impacts to the area. Utility infrastructure and services are adequate. Based on the character and land use patterns in this area, MUC zone district is most compatible in terms of allowed land uses and would support the need for reinvestment along the corridor and aligns with the city's housing goals. Planning Commission recommended approval of the request on November 18th. If City Council approves this request, then a zone change is approved. That concludes my presentation. Also, the applicant's not planning to make a presentation, but is here for questions via Zoom and in person. So myself and them are here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to questions from council, I'd like to open this up for the public to speak on this. I have no one signed up to speak on this agenda item number 2. If you haven't signed up, you may still speak on this item. Please come to the podium. Or if you are online and would like to speak on this, you may do so now. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much, and I see no one here at that, so we will conclude our public's questioning opportunity on this, and we will go to questions from council. Before I close the public hearing, are there any questions? Councilor Hutchinson. You're on mute? Ms. Hutchinson? That should good?
Am I good?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I heard about workforce housing. Can you elaborate on that? As far as what does that mean? How much is it going to be?
Ms. Stevens, do you have data on that?
So I can bring the applicant up for this, but in terms of workforce housing, from what I know, and I'll let him explain as well, unless it answers your question, they're looking at a standard market rate for the most part, but more affordable than your usual for such as teachers, nurses, that kind of thing is the goal. Did you want to elaborate?
And if you would please give us your first name and last name and spell your last name and an address, please.
Great. Good evening, council members. My name is Mark Nemger. I'm with Planmark Design. I'm the planner and landscape architect on the project team. And the question you asked would best be answered by, I got two gentlemen here that are the actual owner developers who have done projects like this elsewhere. So if we could get either Eric or Stuart online, great. Take it away, guys, on workforce housing.
Okay, if you would please introduce yourself and give us your, once again, first name, last name, spell your last name, and give us an address.
Want me to start, Eric, or do you want to start?
Why don't you go ahead and I'll add on.
Sure, my name is Stuart Sloat. The last name is S as in Sam, L-O-A-T as in Tom. And let's see, my address is 2211 North Corona Street, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Okay, as far as workforce housing, what we're talking about is not deed-restricted housing, as people know, which is, technically affordable housing. What we're looking to serve are the people that do not qualify for those programs, but who also can't afford, the $2,500 a month rents that are right down the street. Our 2-bedroom rents, let's see, our studios, we're looking at market rents would be around $1,100, maybe $1,150 a month, up to 2 bedrooms of a little over $1,500 a month. Which I was looking at the Clear Creek Crossing to give an example of other market rate stuff. Their studios are about $300 more a month than our 2-bedroom units. So we're looking to serve the people that can't afford that but do not qualify for affordable housing programs.
Thank you.
This is great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Very much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you so much for being here. I just have a follow-up question to that. While I understand it won't be deed restricted, is there a way that you will be checking, or is that legal to ask someone if they are a teacher, or does that make sense? In other words, what stops someone who is able to afford something much more than that from renting that, if that makes sense?
It's market rate, so anybody can rent it. Just based upon the amenities that it will have, and this is geared towards providing housing. And I think people that can afford a lot more will probably be looking for a lot more.
Okay.
And so there's really nothing, we're within a standard, fair housing practices with a professional management company that will be handling everything.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ohm.
Thank you. I just have one question. Is there some type of access to the Clear Creek from this project?
To the trail you're talking about?
Correct, to the south.
I think right now there's like an informal kind of access off of Van Gordon Street that wraps around the lake, just not really a formal trail, but we'd sure love to see something better back there. So I don't know, if and how that could connect, but we're certainly right up there against the lake and people can get to the lake, but I don't know about the trail.
Thank you.
Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you. So are there any plans to convert the restaurant to something else, or are there any plans in place for that right now?
Sure. Do you want to take that, Eric?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, our plans, right now in the building, you have what's currently the hotel and the rooms. That's very clear that it'll be moving over to apartments. In the current restaurant area, we have our architect looking at that. The plan is to convert that to some of the larger units, some of the 2-bedroom units, to utilize that space really at the highest and best use. And then there's currently actually underneath the restaurant something that's really just been used for storage for a long time, but it was kind of set up almost looks like as a bar or disco. Our plan for that is to clean that out and put smaller storage area down there that would be available for the tenants, you know, as part of the building.
Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited to see this project proposal coming forward. People who seek housing in this price point, a lot of times disproportionately rely on transit or walking or biking for transportation. Are you going to be providing any secure on-site bike storage for your residents?
Yeah, maybe I'll just speak to that. So yeah, down in that basement area, we will have available storage lockers, you know, probably 5x5 or whatever layout our architect comes out with, but it's actually a relatively large square footage there that we are planning on converting to storage area for the tenants.
Great.
And there is a ramp down to that storage area, so it would be pretty easy to get a bicycle back and forth in and out of there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I had a question. It looked like that you had a couple of commercial pads, maybe up on 44th Avenue. Have you identified potential users for those?
We have not yet, but we're sure open to suggestions if any of you have them. Now we're excited to move on to that part, and we've really been focusing on the family housing part of this, but we're going to be actively looking to do something with that sooner than later.
Thank you. Before I close the public hearing, are there any more questions from council? I'm going to close the public hearing, and Ms. Dozeman, a motion is in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 24, 2021, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 12100 West 44th Avenue from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial on second reading, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication for the following reasons. 1, the Planning Commission has recommended approval of the rezoning after conducting a proper public hearing. 2, the proposed rezoning has been reviewed by the Community Development Department, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. And 3, the proposed rezoning has been found to comply with the criteria for review in Section 26603 of the Code of Laws.
Second. We have a motion and a second by Ms. Hoppy. Is there a discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you guys for bringing this forward. This is a much-needed housing market in any community. I think that this gap between designated affordable housing and actual affordable housing, a lot of people fall in that gap, and those are the people that our community depends on to thrive and function. So bringing this forward and being able to renovate an existing building is, there's a lot about that aligns with the values of our community, and we just really appreciate you bringing that forward, and I am very much looking forward to seeing this happen and to welcoming everybody as new neighbors. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to echo what Councilwoman Hulteen has said and add to it that, this is typically and historically been a troublesome property for our community. And so this will be quite the turnaround for it, and also will be serving members of our community that there's a real gap of where we're filling needs in our community. So thank you very much for bringing this project forward.
Councilor Ohm.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this project forward. My only comment is I hope that there's some more discussion about that connectivity from this to the Clear Creek Trail, because that is such a great amenity, and I'm really excited to see this project go forward. Thank you.
Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you. I also am very excited to see the second set of workforce housing open in District 4. And as Councilmember Hoppy had alluded to, this was one of the problem areas for District 4. And so I'm really excited to see that the property is going to be reused in a way that would be beneficial for the entire community. And I really thank you for your willingness to come and discuss what your potential plans are. So welcome to Wheat Ridge, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion on the motion, will the clerk, will all those in favor of the motion please raise your hand? Will the clerk please tally the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Good. Okay, we will go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Holteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce resolution number 2-2022, a resolution approving a major subdivision at 4,000 to 4,066 Upham Street in the Residential 3 R3 Zone District, case number WS 2106/Ridgetop Village Plat. At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a major subdivision on property located at 4,000 through 4,066 Upham Street. The purpose of the request is to subdivide the property into 22 lots plus 4 tracts. The plat is required to allow each dwelling in the development to be owned separately, to establish common area tracts, and to establish the necessary utility and access easements.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is a public hearing. It is quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. If you speak on this issue, by speaking, you agree to tell the truth as you understand it in this matter. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Senior Planner Scott Cutler is here this evening.
Mr. Cutler.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Scott Cutler, planner with City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, and this is case number WS 2106, which is request for approval of a major subdivision in the R3 Zone District. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. The properties within the City of Wheat Ridge, all appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore City Council has jurisdiction to hear the case. This is a 2020 aerial view of the property, which is outlined in red, and it's about 1.9 acres in size, currently contains 4 single-family homes on almost half-acre lots each, which are also double depth. It's located on the east side of Upham Street, midway between 38th and 44th Avenues. And there are a mix of residential uses in the area. There's a large apartment building to the north and more apartments to the west. There's also a decent amount of single family to the south, west, and north on Upham Street. And it is also nearby the 38th Avenue corridor, and the West 38th Avenue apartment building is approximately a block to the southwest. Property is zoned residential 3, as are all of the surrounding properties on Upham Street in this area. And R3 allows multifamily and townhomes up to 12 units per acre. The school property to the east is zoned R2, as are all of the properties further north on Upham Street, and R2 is a little bit lower density than R3. Properties further south on Upham Street towards 30th Avenue have mixed-use zoning, which is reflective of the more commercial and higher density character of 38th Avenue. On December 16th, Planning Commission approved what's called a Plan Building Group site plan for this property, which is developed under the existing R3 standards. And then a major subdivision is required to sell each approved unit separately and to create common area tracts and utility easements. This subdivision consists of 22 lots for the 22 units and then 4 common area tracts. City Code requires City Council approval of major subdivisions, even though Planning Commission has approved the site plan already, which includes the architecture, landscaping, and site layout. So this is the last step in the approvals process. The developer will be responsible for constructing public improvements on Upham Street, including a new 5-foot sidewalk, curb, gutter, and also slightly widening the street on that side. And the right-of-way dedication allows the city to fully control Upham Street and the proposed improvements. The plat also will dedicate all necessary access, utility, and drainage easements. Subdivision regulations are found in Article 4 of the Zoning Code, and a subdivision is a reconfiguration of lots, tracts, or parcels for sale or development, creating, removing, or defining property lines. And like I said earlier, it allows the city to evaluate right-of-way, and it allows the city to evaluate construction documents. Subdivision plat does not affect the zoning or permitted uses on the property. It enables development permitted by R3 and allows the developer to sell each unit to individual buyers. The plat corresponds with the approved site plan and allows each unit to be sold separately, with the property owner controlling their private yard space and building. The common areas, which includes the drive aisles and open spaces, are placed in tract to be owned and maintained by the owners association. And Tract A, which is shown in light gray on the map, includes all drive aisles, sidewalks, guest parking areas, and driveways. And then tracts B, C, and D are the common open space tracts that are highlighted in green. The plat also dedicates a portion of right-of-way along Upham Street for the construction of public improvements. There's a large portion at the southwest area of the site, which will allow the city to fully control Upham Street. Upham Street was actually previously on private property in this area, and with this dedication, will be fully controlled by the city, and that's all shown in red. And the plat also dedicates easements, which will allow for the distribution of utilities such as water and sanitation to each lot. Those easements are being coordinated with the utility districts. Access easements are also dedicated across Tract A, which allows blanket access for residents, guests, and emergency vehicles throughout the development. And a drainage easement between lots 8 and 9 will allow the conveyance of water to the off-site detention pond on the Jefferson County Schools property to the east. The applicant has worked with the school district to coordinate shared use of an existing detention facility immediately east of the site, and the school district has provided written consent to this arrangement. What you're not seeing on this map is the actual shapes of the buildings, so the white lots also will include building, but also private yard space for each unit. Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, and we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, and we also completed an internal review. There are no remaining comments on the application, and both planning and engineering of the city have found the plat to be approvable. And then the site plan, which includes all architecture, landscaping, and site design, was approved by Planning Commission in December. Construction documents are currently under review by the engineering division. And before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days. Letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. We did not receive public comments on this application, although there were some public comments for the Planning Commission portion. Ultimately, staff has concluded that the request complies with the subdivision regulations, corresponds with the approved site plan, and all agencies can serve the property. Approval of the plat will allow the development of the site as allowed under R3 to proceed. And for all of those reasons, we are recommending approval. The applicant is here in person if you have questions, but they don't have a separate presentation, and I'm here as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I will open it up to the public for a comment on this item. I have one person signed up to speak on this, Raleigh Sorrentino. You may come to the podium now. If you'd please give us your first name, last name. Please spell your last name. Give us an address for the record. I'm going to ask the clerk to turn off the timing device at the podium. We will not be timing public comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Raleigh Sorrentino, 4175 Teller Street, Wheat Ridge, Colorado. I have a handout for the council members and the clerk here. Council members.
And just for the record, if you'd spell your last name, please, sir.
S is in Sam, O-R-R-E-N-T-I-N-O.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm giving that to you, and I'll read what it says. Does this proposal need modification now that we, as part of the Front Range, have seen what fire can do to a community? This development would increase the risk of fire to neighborhood homes. The density, building materials, which I presume would be flammable, would produce a much larger bonfire than the existing buildings. And this brings up the subject of sprinkler systems in those buildings. I'm not aware that whether they have sprinkler systems or not for fire protection. Parking and access by large vehicles. For example, fire trucks and trash trucks need a look. The best solution would be to cut back on the number of buildings, but the developer probably isn't receptive to that idea. But at the very least, there could be head-on street parking, which would solve the dual problem of service access and parking, which brings up the question, I don't know if you can put the drawing back up there, but on the west side on Upham Street, is there a lane there for parking which is off-street where cars can park parallel and not protrude into the street right away? Cutting back on green space is not a solution. Given the concerns about hotter temperatures and climate change, we need to pay attention to the amount of hardscape that goes with every development. This one needs more green, especially trees. Based on photos of the burned neighborhoods in Superior, homes often burned, but not the nearby trees. This was also an experience on the East Troublesome fire. Bottom line, we need to stop building warehouses for people. We need housing that considers safety, healthy living, and appearance. This development could use help on all fronts. And I would like to reiterate the question of parking along Upham Street next to this project. I'm not aware that the parking doesn't protrude into the street right away, therefore narrowing the access. Right now, or at least north of this apartment building development on 38th and Upham, going north on Upham to 44th, there's generally no cars parked on the street. It's been that way for a long time because most of the houses there are R1. Even the apartment houses have complete off-street parking. So the concern was to keep the street open for traffic that's increasing there, and also the fire trucks and trash trucks that go up and down Upham Street. The other question is green space. I guess you've addressed that. But anyway, that's my comments for this evening. I thank you for listening.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up to speak. If there's anyone here who hasn't signed up, you may still speak at the podium now, or if we have anyone online that would like to speak. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anyone else here to speak, so we will close our public's right to speak. We will open it up for questions from council. Councilor Hoppe, Councilor Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When there was going to be a development on this property before, they had worked with the school district, and the school district's drainage retention pond needed work. It does mention in the staff packet that they have a letter and they will be working with the school. Will they also still be upgrading that detention pond? I think it was just the drain itself that needed work. Will they be updating that then?
I will defer that question to the applicant. They have more info on that than I do.
And if you would please give us your first name, last name, please spell your last name and give us an address.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Matt Hill, Hill. Address is 5000 Quitman Street in Denver. The answer to your question is yes. The entire detention basin it needs work, and that's part of the reason why Jefferson County, the school district is so interested in us being involved. We'll more or less deconstruct it and reconstruct it and bring it all up to standards.
Thank you. I appreciate you maintaining that piece of upgrade for our schools.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one question on the drainage easement. Is there any type of, like filtration or mitigation for the runoff of, it looks like it's probably draining from the street of the development prior to draining onto the Jeffco School property?
Yeah, for sure. That's the intent of the detention, is in order to capture the water, let sediment and whatnot settle, the sediment settle out, and then the overflow be discharged at a really, really slow rate so that it doesn't have any erosion or any impacts to neighboring properties.
Thank you.
Councilor Stites?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question about parking since our public comment tonight brought up parking. I thought I saw in here that there were 2-car garages for most of these units, right? Is there additional parking on the site as well?
Yes, all of them include 2-car parking, 2-car garages, and then there is additional parking. And according to the R3, the design standards, we are actually exceeding the parking requirements across the board.
Thank you.
Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify on kind of a little bit procedurally what we're doing here, if the developer were to build these as apartments and retain them, would there be a need for a subdivision on this?
Not a major subdivision, most likely. There would likely still need to be a subdivision to establish easements, but the reason we're here tonight is because of the number of lots. City code requires city council to review any subdivision, I believe 6 lots or greater, regardless of the content.
Okay.
So this one's way over that threshold.
Okay, and then just to confirm that we're not changing the zoning or the allowable density on the property, is that correct?
Correct. It's limited, R3 is limited to 12 units per acre.
Okay, and I think I saw, to the point of parking, I was glad to see that there was some additional off-street parking that was provided. And I think I saw mentioned in there, parking in the driveway, there'd be like, the 2-car garages could have driveways deep enough that guests could park in the driveway if needed on a couple of the properties. Was that correct?
Yes, there are a few units that have pretty long driveways, so there's additional driveway parking for a few of those units.
Okay, and then my last question is, what is the requirement for treescaping and greenscape on the property? I know that there's the parkland dedication fee, but it looked pretty narrow in the front. Is there going to be any trees planted in the front of the property or on the property anywhere?
Yes, so R3 requires 30% landscaping, and this property is well over 30% landscaped. There's also a 20-foot setback along Upham Street, so there will be a front yard area with street trees, and the city does require, I believe, a tree every 30 feet or 40 feet for this type of development, so there will be several new trees planted along Upham Street.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One of them is, I remember that we had changed some of our requirements in code to where there would have to be front-facing units. Does this have front-facing units on those ends that face Upham Street?
Yes, it does. So all 4 units that are along Upham Street will actually face Upham Street with front porches, and I guess the windows and doors all face Upham Street, yes.
Thank you. And then my other question is for City Attorney Dahl. Can you just remind those that are maybe watching us online or zooming in with us, we are doing a subdivision replat, and our job here is to make sure that they are meeting all the requirements for that subdivision replat. Is that correct?
That's right. As contrast to subdivision plats approval by council, review by council is contrasted, say, for example, to, rezoning applications, special or conditional use permit applications, which have kind of more subjective standards. For subdivision applications, the standards are pretty objective. Those standards are in your code, Article 4 of Chapter 26. And so your job is to determine whether the plat is in compliance with those standards, and also whether agencies can provide services to the property. And you'll notice that those are 2 of the reasons for listed for approval in the recommended motion. Those are also two recommendations or findings really, that the Planning Commission has made. So while the council still has a job to do and has to vote yes or no on this resolution, the review criteria are more objective and mechanical, and that's reflected in the motion.
Thank you.
Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question for the public comment on accessibility of major fire machinery in this. Could you just speak to that, Mr. Cutler, for just a moment with the two entrances and things like that?
Yes, so every application we receive, we refer to West Metro. West Metro happens to be less than a block from here in this case, but they reviewed this plan and have approved it. And that includes width of the drive aisle, so 24 to 26 feet wide, allowing a large fire truck to maneuver through the site, and also the curves of the roadway, they've been approved.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Before I close the public hearing, are there any other comments from council, questions from council? I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Hulteen, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 2-2022, a resolution approving a major subdivision at 4,000 through 4066 Upham Street in the residential 3 R3 zone district for the following reasons. City Council has conducted a proper public hearing that meets all public notice requirements as required by Section 26109 and 26407 of the Code of Laws. The requested subdivision has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. The subdivision plat has been found in compliance with Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws, and all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And with the following conditions, the applicant shall pay the required fees in lieu of parkland dedication at time of building permit, and the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement and a lot sale restriction covenant agreement with the city at the time of recordation of the subdivision plat.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Dozman. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to say that I appreciate that we are moving in a mix of diverse housing in our community. This is another gap that we're missing. And so the two things that we've heard this evening are filling two different gaps that we have in our community. And to be able to have an inclusive and diverse community, we need to make sure that we have inclusive and diverse housing. So I look forward to this project getting done.
Councilor Ohm.
I'd like to thank staff. I know they went through a lot of work to get to this point, and echo Councilmember Hoppe's comments. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed 7-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill number 01-2022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 9605 West 38th Avenue from Residential 1 or R1 to Residential 1B or R1B. This is case number WZ-21-12. At issue is the applicant is requesting the approval of a zone change from Residential 1 to Residential 1B for the property located at 9605 West 38th Avenue. The zone change retains the single-family character of the neighborhood and could allow the oversized subject property to accommodate 2 single-family homes in the future.
Thank you. This is a ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. A motion is in order. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 01-2022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 9605 West 38th Avenue from Residential 1 R1 to Residential 1B R1B. On first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, February 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. is a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers if allowed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restrictions, and that it take effect 15 days after publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Hoppy. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Will the clerk please tally the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you so much. We will go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 03-2022, a resolution recognizing historical assets on the Lutheran Legacy campus and supporting a good faith effort to preserve, rehabilitate, and/or reuse the Blue House, Tucker Tent, and the Chapel of the Good Samaritan. At issue on October 25th, 2021, City Council adopted the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan. During that public hearing, a City Council consensus motion was made to move forward a resolution recognizing the public's interest in retaining the Blue House, Chapel, and Tuberculosis Tent.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Mr. Johnstone, do you have anything to add?
Thanks, Patrick. Not much here to answer questions, but certainly this was a recurring theme that we heard through the Lutheran Legacy Campus Master Plan process, that these historic assets, the 3 assets that are mentioned in the resolution and have been introduced tonight, that there's a strong desire to retain, rehabilitate, reuse in whatever fashion is feasible. So this resolution would set that expectation for some future owner, developer of this property, and more the details to be worked out, likely through the rezoning process. But glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, I would invite the public to speak on this agenda item number 5. I have no one signed up to speak, but if you are here and would like to speak, you may do so now. If you are online and would like to speak, please raise your hand or indicate so, and we will bring you into the meeting. And I don't see anybody here wishing to speak, and no one online, so we will close that portion of our program, and we'll go to questions from council. Councilor Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ken, I have a question, or I guess anyone. Once this is passed, how does it show up in conversations moving forward? I know it's a recommendation and it's non-binding, but as conversations move forward with developers interested in rezoning, how is this handled in those conversations? How does this requested council, how is it introduced and how is it taken into consideration during those conversations?
Yeah, well, it would be my expectation that the property owner, SCL Lutheran, would likely, probably make this available as part of their communications to the development market as they market this piece of real estate for sale. So that would be my expectation, but absent that, it certainly would be communicated from my staff that anyone who asked a question about what was the potential future real estate options, rezoning options for this property, it would be something that we would highlight early and often as an expectation of the community through adoption of this resolution should it pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you. So this is also a question for staff. Has there been any options explored about potentially moving the Blue House and the Tucker Tent, and maybe if that would be feasible, what the costs would likely be in like the last-ditch effort to save at least 2 of the 3 buildings?
Yeah, I think there's, Ms. Dozeman, there's been at least conceptual conversations in that regard. I mean, I think those structures amongst the 3 that are in the resolution are the most easily moved, should there be a logical location for them to be moved, whether that be on-site or off-site. So I think those are certainly options for those 2 structures. Obviously, much more challenging for the chapel.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, because I know that there has been some murmurs within the community of the possibility of if we cannot save them on the current site, whether the Wheat Ridge Historical Society, their plot of land on 44th and Robb would be able to house, at minimum, the Blue House and the Tucker Tent, since I believe those two to be the most historical, in their efforts to rid the community of tuberculosis. So I just want to kind of put that out there as far as staff, and maybe if we can look at the feasibility of that moving forward. I don't know if there would be another council member that would consent to have staff look into that as a potential option as well.
Councilor Hoppe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify that we don't own this property or own these buildings, correct? Thank you.
Maybe to reply to Ms. Dozman's questions, I think, yeah, as Ken mentioned, those are definitely been conversations, and I think that's a great possibility, and it definitely could. I think we'll work with any future owner on that and as a possibility to see if they don't want to reuse them on the site, or if they can't. I think we would definitely, especially if you pass this resolution, last best case or option maybe it would be to move them. So it'll definitely be in the conversation.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions, Mr. Stites, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 03-2022, a resolution recognizing historical assets on the Lutheran Legacy Campus and supporting a good faith effort to preserve, rehabilitate, and/or reuse the Blue House, Tucker Tent, and the Chapel of the Good Samaritan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Dozman. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Hoppe?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to also say thank you to our former council member Urban, who brought forward the consensus to bring forward this resolution, with it being as important as it is to our community.
Okay, seeing no more discussion on the motion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please tally the votes? Thank you so much. The hour is almost 8:30. I'd like to stop for about a 10-minute break. So we will adjourn for 10 minutes and then continue our meeting. reconvene our meeting at this time. Looks like we're just kind of waiting for, okay, thank you, Councilor Hutchinson. We're just going to get going again. Good to see you here. Okay, let us move forward to agenda item number 6. Ms. Dozman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 04-2022, a resolution establishing the street width for 52nd Avenue from Ward Road to Tabor Street, for Tabor Street from 52nd Avenue to Ridge Road, and for Ridge Road from Tabor Street to the city boundary east of Sims Place. The street widths for 52nd Avenue, Tabor Street, and Ridge Road were designated by council on February 25th, 2019, but construction didn't start within 1 year, so the street width designations must be redone in accordance with Section 520 of the city charter.
Thank you so much. This will be a resolution of the council. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do a brief explanation on this. We have Mark Westberg and Ken Johnstone both online.
Okay, Mr. Westberg.
I'm going to share my screen. I've got a quick little PowerPoint to show you guys. If my audio starts cutting out, let me know and I will hide my face while still sharing my screen. Do you guys see the screen share?
We see your screen share and we hear you.
Okay, then I will proceed. Again, this is for the street width for 52nd Avenue, Tabor Street, and Ridge Road. This is a graphic that we've been using for a while that shows the work that's being done up around the Ward TOD. This is the Wheat Ridge Ward Station here. These are the streets that are existing that are being improved. The streets that are dashed are the ones that are being built developers. And then we have the linear park with this portion being built by a developer. We're going to build the pedestrian bridge and the trail down to the I-70 frontage road. The parts we're here for tonight are 52nd Avenue from Tabor Street over to Ward Road, Tabor Street between Ridge and 52nd, and then Ridge Road between Tabor and our city boundary on the east side of that area. Street width is we have to go through a process to designate the street width that's outlined in the charter and the code, and is measured from the face of the curb, the flow line of the curb, if you will. The existing widths of those streets vary with 2 or 3 lanes. They actually vary a lot through this whole project area. But in general, we have 2 or 3 lanes of traffic. The proposed street widths are much more consistent, especially for 52nd and for Ridge. Tabor varies a little bit, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. There's a public hearing process that we follow that's in the charter and is outlined in the code also. Again, as mentioned in the opening issue statement, the street widths were designated on February 25th of 2019. Our charter has a provision that construction must commence within 1 year of that street width designation. And this project was delayed due to the annexation. If you'll remember, a couple of years ago, we were required to annex 52nd Avenue right away, the portions that were within Jefferson County. That delayed the project for a bit. And then, of course, right about the time that we would have started, COVID happened, and we put all of these Ward TOD projects on hold to focus our efforts other places. There's no change from the widths that were designated in 2019. Again, this is just, we're sort of redesignating them, if you will, because the previous designation is expired. So 52nd Avenue, starting on the west end, Ward Road is this area over here, this very wide area here. We'll be building a 35-foot wide street with 2 lanes of traffic and a center turn lane. This particular part of the plan gets us to Vivian Street. This part of Vivian is being built by Toll Brothers, and it'll connect up with they've got a temporary connection now. We'll build the permanent connection. And then continuing on to the east, we get to where Union Court takes off to the north. Again, very consistent width of 35 feet. And then we end at Taft Court. I'm sorry, not ending yet. We get to Taft Court. Going south on Taft is the main route to the Wheat Ridge Ward Station. And then again, we end at Tabor Street here at the Tabor Street 52nd Avenue intersection. For Tabor Street, starting at the south end at Ridge Road, We've got 3 lanes of traffic, and then we start to add on-street parking on both sides. And then we stop with the on-street parking at this location. And then the rest of it, we have to shrink this down due to some private property encroachments that are within the right-of-way right before we get to 52nd Avenue. The way the charter section and code sections are written, we don't have to worry about auxiliary lanes, and we don't have to worry about some other minor changes less than 200 feet. And so the predominant street width for Tabor Street, even though it does vary, is 38 feet. For Ridge Road, again, very, very consistent, 43 feet, 1 lane in each direction, a center turn lane where we have left turn lanes were allowed to get onto Swadley and Sims. And then we also have bike lanes on both sides of Ridge Road, which is why this street section is wider than what we have on Tabor Street. The next steps on our project, pending approval of street width tonight, is we are wrapping up getting our final set of construction drawings put together to submit to CDOT. And that is just for the 2 intersections at Ridge and at 52nd for this project. They are contributing $300,000 towards the improvement of that intersection. And so we've got a little bit of an approval and funding process to go through with them. That'll take us about 3 months. And then we'll go through the bidding and award phase. That'll take us from May through July. And then we hope to start construction in August. And we think the construction list will take about a year. And that would have us ending sometime in the summer of 2023. And really, that's all I've got tonight. It was just sort of a reminder of what we did 3 years ago. But I think we've got some new folks since 3 years ago, so we wanted to do a quick presentation. This picture is a picture showing relatively recently of 52nd near Ward Road looking to the east, showing how much the street and the conditions on the side change. So I'm just available for questions if council has any. I'll leave the PowerPoint up just in case we need to go back and refer to anything.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I want to open this up to the public. I do have one person signed up to speak, Dennis Hatfield. You may, if you'd like to come to the podium, and please give us your first name and last name. If you'd please spell your last name for the record and give us your address, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and rest of the City Council. The proposal and stuff of widening our road in front of our house, which has been there for 109 years, has come under a little bit of question from us in that no one has explained to us exactly how much of our property they want to take to do it. No one's made an effort to come out and putting lines down or anything like that. The PowerPoint that he had here doesn't give us exact measurements of where they want to take our fence and stuff to go up to the end. At the very end, you would be going through, well, they're saying they couldn't and stuff because you'd be going through our neighbor's kitchen and stuff to put your road through there. We start our property from our fence line 200 feet back. We have put a lot of money into that, had to go in front of the council here and stuff many times before to put up a fence, a sturdy fence. We've had it busted 4 times and stuff from traffic coming down through there. What we're trying to find out here is at what point and stuff from the end, from the, your maps up there and stuff show like a stop sign on 52nd. And then back to the east across Tabor Street there, at what point are they wanting to widen it out and how far are they wanting to widen it out? How much of our property are they wanting to take? We have lots of improvements in there with sprinklers and perennials and fruit trees and everything like that. When we went through this process before, our neighborhood came out and big time supported us. You saw us. We packed the meetings in here and stuff when you decided to build this. At the time, everybody was up in arms about it, and we talked to developers, and they said, okay, we're gonna build townhomes here now, 2 stories. So everybody said, okay, if you're gonna do that, as long as you don't force that much traffic on us and stuff here, then we'll drop our objections to it. At the time, I believe it was Larry was on the city council here and stuff, Larry Matthews. And at one of the last meetings we were here at, he said, well, how about and stuff, we don't have any roads that come in from the development onto Tabor Street and no parking there. And we said, you know, if that stops it and you keep the traffic down on here, we're okay with that. That didn't happen. Now we have parking all along the west side there and stuff in front of all the new townhomes, which they built up 10 feet from the road. So the only place you people have left to take and stuff is our property now. That's been there for over 100 years. If you're going to do that and stuff, at least let us know how much you want to take on it, if there's going to be any reimbursement for it, if there is going to be any alternatives possibly for it. We're left kind of in the dark here. We got this notice here and stuff, and it sure didn't come a month ahead of time on the thing. It just got here like a week ago at the earliest. We need some more time to find out what's going on with this. I called in and stuff to the city planner here and stuff, and they said that we could pick up, and there would hopefully be somebody here tonight where we could pick up a protest petition form and stuff, because it was not notified early enough on us to go through to a lot of our neighbors and find out, is this really what we want in our neighborhood here? Many of my own neighbors and stuff have asked me tonight to come down here in person and stuff to voice our fears and stuff that, once again, probably won't be listened to at all. When we were told there was not going to be any access, any road brought in and stuff onto Tabor Street, we took the city council for their word. We have it now. There is a opening coming in and stuff. I don't know if it's 51st or 50th there, dumping right onto our street. Our traffic has gone up immeasurably. We have withered and stuff there a little bit because with all the fires you've seen lately, they've overbuilt every square inch of the place. If another fire starts over there, we're done. I don't mean to sound alarmist towards that and stuff, but we do have worries about it. And from what the city council had told us before, not coming through, we're worried that, you know, you're going to come in and just take our property. We would really like to find the city planners or somebody and stuff here to tell us how much do they want to take from us there. The roads now, we've completely lost our view. It's gone. You'll never see the sun again over there. The road doesn't even melt off because the ice doesn't melt. We have water problems. Our floors have heaved up and stuff because of all the construction there. Our well went down and stuff by 4 feet. 3 of our neighbors don't have well water anymore. A lot of these things were never considered at all when they put this through. We'd like a little bit, please, some consideration from the city council here and give us some time to view what they want to do with our land over here and how much they want to take, and give us the petition for protest here tonight and stuff, because it says in your rules it has to be filed tonight before the meeting's over. We're asking for these things, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak at this time, but if you haven't signed up and would like to speak, you may do so now. Yes, ma'am. You just give us your name, adjust that microphone so it's convenient for you. There you go. And you just give us your first name and your last name and your address.
My name is Kimberly Reed, R-E-E-D, and I live at 5170 Tabor Street, which is the property Dennis was speaking about. I've been there 33 years, and I love my home. So yes, I have many of the same questions. We have suffered a lot of water damage. We're in the process of trying to decide whether we're going to move or whether we're going to replace the kitchen, living room, and dining room floors. All of my original red oak is gone, and I mean all of it. It's just cupped. We had water buildup. The house has been there 109 years and never had water problems until all the buildings started, and that changed. So this was, I believe, 2 years ago when it happened. It froze. We're on a slab. And so the water came in, it sat, it froze, and then when it thawed, it cracked and heaved the floors. So that's huge. And yes, I have 6 fruit trees, and my neighbors love to see us coming in August because there's tons of produce, and the outside is on well. I don't know that I could afford to do the gardening and the lawn on city water if I had to convert to that. So the well is really critical to my well-being. I'm getting ready to retire, and that's my passion, is gardening and fruit and all that. So we've absorbed hundreds of people, lots of dogs, lots of noise, loss of privacy, loss of the western view. That corner on 52nd, turning onto Tabor, they take out those pylons. There's some cement there on a regular basis because there's ice as you come to the stop sign. A lot of people just smack into the cement every year, many times. So it got hit again because I see that it's out into the road and the street sign is bent. So having those properties up there blocking all the sun, you know, I don't know what we can do about that. But if Mr. Westberg could maybe answer the questions on how far it would come along. We've got 110 feet of fence there and a sprinkler system right at the edge. That it would impact our house, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak, or if we have anybody online, and I don't believe we do? Okay, I don't see anyone else coming to speak, so we will close our public comment on this item and go to questions from council. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick questions. So the first one is on the protest procedures, Mr. Dahl. Am I correct in thinking that they could write down their protest on a piece of paper and give it to you tonight? Is that part of, it's not an official form that they have to fill out, is it?
That's correct. It just says written protest has to be submitted to City Council no later than the conclusion of the public hearing. So that's still timely, and it can be really any written form. It can be a letter, it can be a note. The charter does require that to be able to trigger the protest really just triggers a higher vote count, as you well know. So if a protest is filed that's an appropriate protest, that triggers a 3/4 vote of the entire city council. So that means it would be 6 votes. In order to trigger that, though, the protest has to be by the owners of 20% of the property immediately adjacent or contiguous to either side of the street, or 10% of the property lying within 300 feet of either side of the street. So one property owner on this particular street length is, I don't have the dimensions in my head, but it's quite likely not going to trigger that charter requirement, where you just have one property owner. It's not going to be enough given the length of the street segment.
And then my question to Mr. Westberg is, since we saw this a couple of years ago, have we widened it, or is this the exact same that we had 2 years ago? And if that's the case, then maybe you do have the information where you could let Mr. Hatfield know how much of their property, if you're familiar with that, with their property on this street, how much of it might be encroached into?
Yes, so this has not changed since the street was designated almost 3 years ago. And we're not acquiring any right-of-way along Tabor Street. We are using what is existing city right-of-way. So certainly from where the edge of the asphalt is today, it may be moving, but we're doing all of this work within the city property. So we're not actually acquiring. We acquired right-of-way along Ridge Road, but we didn't acquire right-of-way along Tabor Street or along 52nd. All the work's being done within the existing right-of-way.
So, I'm sorry, can I clarify that real fast then? Along Tabor specifically then, we will not be going into private property, we're on city property?
Yes, we're not to build the sidewalks in the street, and everything is all going to be on city property.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Goff.
We do have somebody on Zoom from the public that they may not got their hand up in time, would like to has a question.
Okay. Yes, if we have someone from the public that we didn't recognize earlier, can we bring them into the meeting and take their comments?
Yes, Mr. Bennett. We do have somebody on Zoom from the public that they may not got their hand up in time, would like to has a question.
Okay. Yes, if we have someone from the public that we didn't recognize earlier, can we bring them into the meeting?
I think this is a Channel 8 delay. Let's just give it a second.
Hi,
We do have somebody on Zoom from the public that.
Hi, I have.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Tess Tarius. If you could mute your background sound, that would be great, and then we'll be able to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Tess Tari, 5110 Swadley Street. I just am very curious about how you decided to put these buildings 10 feet from the street, the new ones. I don't know how in the world you could possibly widen this street without taking the neighbors who have been there forever, of course, their front yards. And the side yards along Ridge. This is insane. I haven't been here long enough to have been part of the original planning, but I'm really up in arms about this. Aside from not knowing there was a huge apartment building going in, but now we have the huge townhouses going in, and we're just going to take everybody's yard. I'm sorry, I'm frustrated with this.
Thank you. Mr. Westberg, are you able to clarify kind of, do we have existing improvements on the public right-of-way currently, and how much of that occurs on the right-of-way?
So the improvements that we're building along 52nd and along Tabor Street both are all within existing right-of-way. So we're not, there may be grass or ground out there that the property owners has been maintaining all through the years that's past the existing asphalt, but some of that is city right-of-way. It's not private property. So all the improvements we're building are going to be on city right-of-way, not on public property. The exception to that was Ridge Road. In order to widen Ridge, we did have to acquire property, and we did that. We acquired all that property back in, I think, 2019 that we needed in order to build the improvements that we've got along Ridge Road that are being done. And those property owners were compensated both for the property and for the improvements they had within that property that we acquired.
Mark, this is Patrick. Do you know if any of the Hatfield property is in city right-of-way today?
I'm not entirely sure which one is the Hatfield property. I can stop sharing this screen and pull up my my GIS mapping and get their address and punch that in real quick, and we can take a look at that if that's desired.
5170 Tabor. I don't know if we need to do that right now, but I think that's the question, Mark. We just want to make sure when you're saying everything, all the improvements are going to be done in city right away, that doesn't mean that some of these properties don't have some improvements that they've put in, yes, not on their own personal property, but they have improvements that are in cities right away that may have to be taken out.
Sure, that's possible. And if there's a fence that's there in our plans, we've called out to relocate that fence to the right-of-way line. So if there's an existing fence there, then our plans call to relocate. If there's a mailbox there, our plans call to relocate that mailbox so it's behind the sidewalk. So our plans would call out any of those improvements that they may have inadvertently put in city right-of-way. Our plans call to move those improvements, relocate those back to the right-of-way line.
Okay, we have Ms. Dozen.
So if we were to have to move any improvements that might have been built into the city's right-of-way, that would be us incurring that cost, correct? Not the private homeowners? Okay.
Yes, that would be us incurring that cost.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Weaver. Excuse me.
Well, I realize this isn't part of the notification process. Is there any way to get those maps to those owners so they're aware of where those boundary lines are, and if they do, so that they can have those conversations about whether there's underground assets that that it sounds like the city will move back to the property line.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to set up a meeting with any of the property owners along here, either with myself or with our consultant that's doing the plans, to sit down and go into detail, review in detail with them what's happening on their property so that they know. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Could you just maybe repeat your contact information so that anyone here can get your number and follow
Yeah,
up with you?
my office number is 303-235-2863.
Thank you.
Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Wheat Ridge became incorporated in 1969. We're dealing with some properties, many properties in Wheat Ridge that are over 100 years old. And so just because Wheat Ridge became incorporated in 1969, then all of a sudden everything's changed for properties that have been here for over 100 some years. And I understand that. I have an abstract to 1866. That's 1 year after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So just because Wheat Ridge incorporated in 1969 and they want to do all these kinds of things, people still live in older homes. And then what I'm hearing is, oh, we're just going to take this and this because we got to do all this kind of stuff. I seriously think there would be something with history that has to involve here. But new rules, because Wheat Ridge became a city in 1969, everything changes. So what about that with these older homes where people love and they want to stay there, but now we're going to make everything more modern?
Mark, can you address that question when this area was in Jefferson County before the city incorporated in 1969, was there a right-of-way dedicated for these roads?
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know this for a certainty, but I don't know that the right-of-way has changed here, except for the right-of-way that was dedicated. Certainly the right-of-way on the east side of Tabor Street has not changed in the 14 years I've been here, and I doubt that it's changed since the city incorporated. The developers on the west side of Tabor Street did dedicate right-of-way and are building some of the improvements that are over there as a part of their development, like we often require folks to do.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver?
Well, I very much appreciate what was said by Ms. Hutchinson. I think the reality is that almost every property in Wheat Ridge is that way. And certainly the 100-year-old plus farm that I'm on has street right-of-ways taken through it, actually, and fences have had to be moved in the same situation. So while I do empathize with the fact that we're dealing with historical properties here, almost everyone in Wheat Ridge has had to deal with this kind of, I've had to deal with a lot of this boundary moving. So I do think that there is a way to work with Mr. Westerberg and figure out these property lines, but I don't think it should be, we can't go back and question at our incorporation all of these different lines. Thanks.
Additional questions before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Ms. Dozeman, a motion is in order.
I move to approve resolution number 04-2022, a resolution establishing street widths for 52nd Avenue from Ward Road to Tabor Street, for Tabor Street from 52nd Avenue to Ridge Road, and for Ridge Road from Tabor Street to the city boundary east of Sims Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Hoppy. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Ohm.
Although I wasn't here for the discussion years ago with City Council, I support this. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please record the votes? Okay, thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 7. Councilor Hutchinson, would you please introduce this item?
Okay. Mayor, what exactly was the count on that last vote?
That vote was 6-1 with Councilor Hutchinson voting against.
Thank you. Didn't hear it. Okay. This is resolution number 052-2022, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson Center for Mental Health co-responder services. The issue is the Wheat Ridge Police Department and the Jefferson Center for Mental Health, JCMH, have developed a mental health co-responder program to provide the community with a mental health case manager clinician to consult with the city's police department to act and follow up on referrals from the police and ride with patrol officers in duty to provide services to persons in community that are experiencing mental health crisis or substance use problems. The program is described in a memorandum of understanding. This resolution approves that memorandum.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
We do. Chief Murtha is online and would like to say a few words.
Okay, Chief Murtha.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just a few comments really on the co-responder program that started in 2019 in the city of Wheat Ridge. That program has expanded and expanded in every jurisdiction regionally. As a result of that, we found that Golden and Jefferson County, our partner, wanted their own co-responder, and so did we. We found the need for it. We certainly have a number of people in need of the services that are provided. Doing this through Jefferson Center for Mental Health is certainly advantageous to the city. And moving forward, this is a split of costs between ourselves and funding allocated through a grant to Jefferson Center that they've appropriated to us. So as officers move through the community and we find persons in crisis or persons experiencing a need for a clinician, we certainly have one on hand, and it's been extremely beneficial. We look to continue to see where we can plug in mental health services and sometimes remove ourselves from that interaction. And we've enjoyed great success on that front, and we've seen great follow-up and great training from our mental health provider. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about our mental health program. I will suggest that there are several other pilot programs in the work to expand mental health, either regionally or through other avenues in Jefferson County. However, we would probably always want to retain our own clinician to do the follow-up and the work necessary to ensure that services and wraparound services are provided.
Thank you, Chief Murtha. Before we go to questions from council, I will open this up for questions or comments from the public. I have no one signed up to speak on this agenda item number 7. If you're here in the room with us, you may speak, come to the podium, and I will see if anyone online has their hand raised or would like to speak on this item. And we do not have anyone from the public wanting to speak on this item, so we will go to questions from council. There are no questions from council. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I've heard about this program through different cities and things like that. I would just like some feedback. I haven't heard it really about what the outcomes are. And I would just like some follow-up with that about how it's working. You know, I just haven't heard it. Maybe I missed it. I don't know.
Chief, do we have any data or anecdotal information that tells us how this program is going?
Well, anecdotally, I can tell you that the co-responder works in conjunction with our homeless navigator in many cases. And so I think you've heard some of the successes that they've had. We certainly have been able to find some outstanding outcomes out of this, but I don't have the statistics with me. I know Division Chief Lorenz is on as well, and I don't know if he has any of the statistics with him. However, our co-responder program, it would be hard to measure some of the successes. Certainly they intervene, they provide services, they provide, sort of a bridge to long-term mental health care issues, and I don't know what the number is, but I'm happy to provide that in the future.
Thank you, Chief, and I'm sure it would be of interest to other council members and members of our public as we get data and anecdotal evidence about the quality and the response that we get off of this program, because I think people are really interested in this, in the success of this program. Thank you,
Yeah,
Council.
we'll send that data out tomorrow to council. I think Division Chief Lorenz was having trouble getting in, but he just notified me. We have the data and we'll send it out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Hutchinson. Any other questions for the Chief on this one? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Hutchinson, can you provide us a motion on this agenda item number 7?
Certainly, thank you. I move to approve resolution number 05-2022, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson Center for Mental Health for co-responder services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Stites. Do we have a discussion on the motion? Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate that our police department and Jefferson Center for Mental Health is partnering in this, and that it's successful enough that we need to expand it. I do hope that we will continue to look for potentially other ways to expand these services in our community, like with perhaps a mental health navigator or something like that, would work under our administrative services or work in conjunction with our homeless navigator. But I will take any small step we can take, and I will cherish it as a large step. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please count the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you so much. We will go to agenda item number 8. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to award a contract and approve subsequent payments of $90,400 to Barry Dunn for enterprise resource planning consultant service. At issue, at City Council's direction, staff has completed a competitive bidding process to select a consultant to analyze business practices and assist with the procurement of a new enterprise resource planning system. The procurement process is complete, and Barry Dunn is a recommended consultant based on expertise, experience, and cost.
Thank you. This will be a bid motion of the council. And Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation on this?
Ms. Shuck, you want to add anything?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Goff. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Very excited to bring this item before you this evening. As you know, analyzing and replacing our current enterprise resource planning systems, multiple, has long been a goal. And an ERP is, that's sort of the backbone of our financial system, building and permitting. Courts uses it. It's our human resources, the way we track and manage personnel. It's all of those systems. We're very excited about this. In your strategic planning retreat last year, you prioritized streamlining and improving the building and licensing processes for businesses. This ERP analysis was an activity to support that priority that you all consented to back in May. And in June of last year, of course, you approved a supplemental budget appropriation of $100,000 so that we could actually go out to bid, knowing that we had the funding to do this work due to begin very soon here. So we've done all of that. We're here before you to tell you we have found an incredible consultant. We're very excited about them. They have lots of experience with agencies just like us. In fact, one of the members on the project team has actually worked in the current legacy system that we use today in a former role that she served in as a finance director fairly locally. So we cannot wait to get this started, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I'd like to open it up to comments from the public on agenda item number 8. I have no one signed up to speak on this, but if you're here and would like to speak, you may have an opportunity now. And if you are online, there's an opportunity to speak on this also. Just raise your hand or speak up, and we'll bring you into the meeting. And I see no one here and no one online, so we will close our public comment on this item, and I will go to questions from council. Well, I don't see any questions. I'm going to make a comment that I'm really excited for you guys to have a new backbone for our city. We've got a lot going on, and I think we want to make sure that we keep our technology going.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, Mr. Ohm, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to Barry Dunn in the amount of $90,400 for enterprise resource planning consulting services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please record the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. That concludes our regular agenda item. We will now go to city managers matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick things. Couple exciting announcements. You may have seen it in the Denver Post. We're getting a new tenant at the Gold Center at 26 and Kipling, Legal Pete's. It's a Mexican burrito tavern, which is really good if you haven't been to one. So we're excited about that. That's going to complement the Esther's Tavern that's going on the West End, the coffee shop, the expansion of some of the current businesses that are there, and the new brew pub bowling alley. So very excited about that new center. And then we're also getting a new restaurant. Unfortunately, I can't say who it is, but it's confidential still, but it is something that we don't have very much in the city, so I'm excited about it. But it's going into the West End 38 apartment building at 38th and Upham, so that should be announced very soon. Then also, just want to update City Council real quick. In the past, we've discussed how we're bursting at the seams here at City Hall. We are moving forward with a facilities assessment that was as directed by City Council during the 2022 budget approval process, and we'll be putting that out to bid soon. However, in the interim, we have a really great opportunity that has come upon us to lease some additional space off-site from one of our community partners, Foothills Regional Housing. They recently vacated their main office building on 45th and Wadsworth several months ago, and we have toured their building, and staff has looked at it several times, and we think it will meet our needs on a temporary basis. So we are currently negotiating a lease with them, which we'll bring back to City Council here soon for final discussion on that. But with that, that's it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. City Attorney's matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
No, good and brief. Thank you. Elected officials matters. We'll start with Ms. Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that the Wheat Ridge Grange is having their 5th annual Green and Red Chili Dinner on Thursday, January 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. But the sign up is by January 15th of 2022. Usually this is kind of like a chili cook-off, but this year they're just having everybody bring their chili and swapping recipes. It's always a really fun event that I take the kiddos to, and everybody brings out really good recipes. So I've encouraged some of my family to join, and I hope to see others there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to give a big thank you to Vanola's. I've been taking my kids there. It's close to my neighborhood over the many, many years. And for those who haven't been there, it's some pretty amazing food. So I'm really appreciative that it's so close to my neighborhood. The other thing is I've noticed going through the construction on Wadsworth, the city and the consultants have done a great job. I've thought about trying to, go around it and try to make my life easier, but it's been actually pretty easy in different times of the day, not just, after 5 o'clock. And so, a big thank you for that. I've also noticed traffic radar trailers moving throughout my neighborhood, which I assume is probably for data collection for prior to the Wadsworth construction, which was, a discussion that we had with the city manager and Councilmember Hulteen with consultants. So thank you to them too.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchinson, I'm going to go to you before I forget to look at my screen.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just made an observation regarding Wheat Ridge Speaks, people who listen online, and also people who may come into City Council with comments. And it may be an indication of our climate of how everything is out there. But it's just something that I've noticed to where the public isn't as attached as they were before. And I hope that we all get better with all of this, and just take care of yourself and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Want to welcome Illegal Pete's to District 3. We're excited to have them. We had a couple of snows last week, and I had several neighbors out helping take care of their other neighbors and elderly neighbors. So I wanted to thank all of our neighbors and make sure that businesses, especially as the snow does come, it really does look terrible as a business owner when people are needing to go into the street, or especially watching wheelchairs go into the street to avoid our snowy sidewalks. So get out there and take care of your neighbors, and if you can find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you very much. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to thank the city for such great snow dealings. Just really appreciate that. And I also want to remind everybody, it's stock show time. So if you don't have anything to do this week and next week, it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was under the impression that under City Managers Matters, we were going to discuss if we were going to go virtual, so. We were all sitting here, I'm like, when is this coming up? Yep. That's all I needed.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few things to bring up. Surprise, I'd like to discuss again this week the prospect of going virtual for a short run while this surge passes. We have increasing concerns amongst our peers and amongst staff around minimizing exposure from this very transmissible version of COVID that's in our community right now. There are people that we serve with and city staff members who support us, who have household members who are vulnerable, and some of them not eligible for vaccination. So I would like us to consider going virtual. We don't have a meeting next week, so we have 2 more meetings this month. And no, we only have 1 more meeting this month, and kind of a light schedule in February. So I would like to propose at least through the end of February that we consider going virtual for, just as Patrick expressed in the email that you guys got, staff is really being impacted, and everyone's just trying to minimize exposure. And COVID is amongst us, and there are some concerns. So I'd like to get feedback from you guys about going virtual, not for the long term, just for the short term while this particular wave passes.
Councilor Hoppy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, would that be a return date of February 28th, or will the consensus that you will be asking for be a return date of the 28th, or will it be a return date of March 7th, which is our first meeting in March?
I would suggest we do March 7th. I tend to be a fan of calendars just through February to make it easy, and that we have enough advanced planning. That way, if we get into February and realize things aren't improving, we can make a decision then. So I'd like to propose we stay virtual through the 28th of February, proposing returning back on the 7th, unless we as a body decide otherwise.
Okay, so there's going to be a consensus. So before we go to the consensus, let's see if we have any discussion around it. Mr. Ohm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what Patrick had sent, the email that discussed, was helpful, to kind of shed some light on what the city staff is going through, and also what Chief Murtha had sent something that kind of talked about COVID. I can tell you today, it's like, how does it affect me personally? I got a nephew that has it today. I have, my kids have been dodging a few bullets with people that have had it. So it's pretty close to home. It's getting a little hot. So I would be supportive of doing that.
Additional discussion? Ms. Hoppy?
Yeah, I'm in support of us going virtual until March 7th. From a lot of the projected data out there about where we're going to end, where we'll potentially end up with as they're reading the science and stuff, is that we're going to potentially end on a peak at the end of January, beginning of February-ish. That'll get us a couple of weeks outside of the peak. And although I much prefer our meetings in person, and I very much prefer being able to have people who are in chambers in person, it is important that we are protecting our staff. It's important that we're protecting our police department, and it's important that we're protecting our colleagues who have younger children who not yet have had the opportunity to be able to get unvaccinated. And so I would be in support of it.
Okay, additional discussion? Okay, let's see a show of hands. Oh, Ms. Hutchinson?
That's why I'm here tonight. I totally support this. We have conventions that are going on in town. Stock Show, the Garden and Home Show is going to be going on. This is something that is going on and increasing daily, and we need to be smart about it. And I just think safety first, and I totally support it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're looking for a consensus vote to go by remote until March the 7th. May I see a show of hands in favor of that proposition? Okay, we have consensus on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of other things. We heard from a couple of members of the public tonight asking City Council to take a look at what our different policies currently are and could be around waste management in the city. And so I would like to add that to our list of study sessions, if I would have a second from another City Council member.
I'll support you.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. Yep. All right, thank you very much. And then I want
Can I ask one thing on that real quick, Ms. Hulting? I had a couple constituents reach out a couple of months ago about how long trash can be left out on the curb. Currently, we don't have any ordinances about that. Is that something that could be included in that as well? Or is that something completely?
Yeah, I think that would be part of the whole holistic discussion.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, the holistic trash discussion. Wheat Ridge adopts a holistic trash policy. So then my third thing, we are recognizing radon awareness. I have an uncle who is in end-stage lung cancer from radon in his house. And so it is close to my family and I think incredibly important. If you go to the CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, they no longer offer free, but they offer very low cost in-home radon testing, all inclusive at $17 for a short-term test, $27 for a long-term test. And I encourage everyone, if you do not know the radon level in your house, you should get it tested. It is very serious, it is invisible, and you do not want to find out when it's too late that you have it. So ending on a lighter note, I don't even know the name of the new restaurant that opened up at 44th and like Yarrow in the old 44th Avenue Lounge. And it's just the most amazing Indian food that is doing takeout. And I just highly encourage someone to find out what they're called and to go get some really delicious, really hot and spicy, good in January Indian food takeout. And I will maybe next time know the name of it. They don't have a sign up, but it's delicious. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you. I had a request from Councilor Nosler Beck, asked me to read this tribute to an exemplary Wheat Ridge resident this evening. Thank you for this opportunity to honor an exemplary Wheat Ridge resident, Coach Merle Shirley. Merle resided in Wheat Ridge for nearly 70 years, and at the time, and in that time, put young people in this community first. Merle knew that young men he coached, basketball and football, were the future business owners, educators, fathers, and leaders of our community. Merle invested his time and coaching expertise for 46 years, coaching youth Wheat Ridge baseball or basketball, and for over 40 years he coached Wheat Ridge youth football. He was part of the Wheat Ridge Optimist for more than 30 years, and last year's Carnation Parade was honored to ride with the Optimist Carnation Day float. When not coaching, he was a loving father to Carol and Brett and his 3 grandchildren. Merle, Merle will be missed by so many because he has touched so many. Beyond young men he coached, he also mentored and trained former players to be great coaches. Merle would show up for his players and coaches wherever they were playing. Players could recognize Merle in the stands, cheering for them on with a perfectly coiffed mustache and goatee. He knew that not everyone was going to be a great player, but that everyone needed to be part of the team. Because of Merle's decades of dedication to the young people in Wheat Ridge, Merle's legacy continues on. So in honor of Coach Merle Stanley, when you see a Wheat Ridge youth and their coaches out on the playing soccer, softball, baseball, football, swimming, or playing basketball, thank that coach and all they do for our Wheat Ridge community, and thank you, Coach Merle Shirley, for being a part of our city. I want to, I had a virtual coffee with the mayor last Saturday. I want to thank all the folks that attended, and it was a good meeting. Even virtually, we all talked about how we'd rather be in person, but we'd rather be safe than in person. So thanks to those folks. The Wheat Ridge Business District, I attended their meeting last week with Councilor Stites. We have an opening from council for a council appointment to that board. I sit on that council. Mr. Stites sits on that council. I would like to make a motion or a suggestion that we approve Councilwoman Weaver to be a member of that board. So if there is, I would take discussion on that, but I would like to put forward that nomination and see if we can approve that by acclamation. Councilor Hoppe.
I'm sorry, Mayor, were you asking for a motion to move that forward, or?
I want a consensus that we move Ms. Weaver onto the board.
I'd like to ask for a consensus to appoint Councilwoman Weaver to the Wheat Ridge Business District Board.
Okay, we have consensus, so we're going to appoint you to that board, and I will let the board know that. Ms. Weaver, thank you for agreeing to participate in that forum. It's a very, it's interesting and it's valuable to our city. So, I don't believe there's, yes, Ms. Hoppy, or Ms. Saltini,
thank
excuse
you.
me.
I did find the name of that restaurant. It's Babari. So, yeah, Babari at 44th and Yarrow, kind of in the, where Walgreens is, like just west of Walgreens. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any more business to come before our council? If not, we will stand adjourned. Drive safely. And we will see you back here, not next week, but the following week. Not here, online.